Hey guys, my name is Toby and welcome back to another very exciting Photoshop tutorial where today we're going to be taking a look at the Path tool and how to use it to make really accurate selections. Now, on a product shot like this, it's worth using the Path tool, or the pen tool as I should call it, to make your selections because it's going to be more accurate than using the quick select tool or something like that. It's also a really useful way to kind of store a selection so that you can come back to it later, and when you're doing product work like this, it's actually really useful to be able to have, and I'm going to hopefully show you why. So without further ado, let's take a look. So we need to cut this out of the background, and it's because while it is kind of on a, it's a nice clean background, we don't really want these shadows that we've got here. We also want to make this background go pure white, and we're going to do that using Photoshop. So what we need to do is hit P on the keyboard to select the pen tool. Now the way the pen tool works, it's basically it's a little bit like using the polygonal lasso tool, except much more controllable. So you basically click and it will create a point. If you click again, it creates another point, and it's going to start to draw a line. Now, what makes this more powerful is that if you click and hold, you can actually use I believe these are called Bezier curves, and it lets you kind of draw these like really accurate arcs, so you can do selections on round things as well. And they kind of they influence the point behind them sometimes as well, so it's worth paying attention to. Now, you can also come back at any time and you can move these around. So if I hold down Command or Control if you're on the PC, it's going to change my mouse cursor to this little white normal mouse pointer, and then you can kind of click and move these around. You can use that to select loads of points and move them around as well. Now, you can also use these control points here to change the shape of the curve after the fact, but to do that you have to hold down Alt, where it will then let you move them like so. So it's a really powerful way to accurately kind of, make selections. Now, if you have clicked away from sort of the point that you were continuing and you want to continue using a path, what you have to do is mouse over it, and it's going to give you this weird little icon, and then just click and drag from that point, and then you can continue your path. So that's rubbish, we don't need that, but we are going to use this to cut out this lipstick. Now let's find a good start point. So because when we finish, I want to just be able to draw a big straight line up here, I'm going to start it at the top here where there's this curve, and we want to kind of draw it from about there. So just using Command to move that point, and we can now click and hold and just drag out to match that curve really accurately. Now we can also come along to this corner here, and because this corner is basically 90 degrees, we don't want to click and hold. We want this to be a really sharp turn effectively. So I'm just going to click once, and then that is now going to enable us to just click up and continue that really straight. Although I'm actually going to look for where this curve really kind of starts to taper off. So let's just have a look. I think about there. And we can just kind of move this around until it fits. Then we can come up to about here, I suppose, and just do something like that is going to be pretty good, I think. No, we've gone too far. So sometimes you might need to, just dial it back a bit and kind of rethink how you're approaching some of these. It's the kind of thing where the more you do it, you get more used to kind of how this tool is going to react to what you're telling it to do. So do something, let's just edit undo a couple of times, do something like that, and then like that. And hopefully you can see that this is definitely not the fastest way of getting a selection. If we wanted to get a selection quickly, we could use quick select or something like that, but quick select is going to be nowhere near as accurate as this. And when you're doing, this type of work, being accurate is very important and worth spending the time doing. So, because you don't want to spend the time watching me do this, I'm going to go ahead and finish this off and fast forward it so you don't have to sit through it. Bear with me. Okay, so as you can see, I've now finished pathing out the main part of the lipstick, but we actually want to create two separate paths here because we also want to do a separate path for the reflection, so we can do some clever things that I'll show you in just a second. But the way that paths work is that when you draw a path out, it creates something called a work path. And a work path is basically, it's like a temporary path, just, for the one you're using at the moment. And if we were to now try and create another path, it would actually overwrite everything we just did, and it would kind of get rid of all that work. So we need to save this, first of all, and the easiest way to do that is just to double click it, and it's going to give you an option to rename it and save it. So we're going to call this one product, and hit OK. And now that is saved. So if we now click off of that one, which is quite important, and we start drawing another path, it gives us a second work path. So we can just edit undo a bunch of times there. So I'll click away from that, and now I'm going to do exactly the same thing but for the reflection at the bottom. So bear with me. Okay, so we now have our second work path, so we're going to go ahead and rename this one as well as reflection. Now, in order to turn these into something useful, we need to kind of convert these, if you like, into a reflection. So, into a reflection, into a selection. Too many actions. Right, so to do that, we need to press and hold Command or Control over the top of the thumbnail. If you hold it over the name, this doesn't work. It needs to be the thumbnail of the path. So I'm going to hit click the one for product, and it's going to give us a selection based on that path. And this is pretty much the most accurate selection you could possibly get in Photoshop. Not the most timely, but it's certainly going to give you good results if you're prepared to sit there for a couple of minutes and path some stuff out. So we also want to grab our reflection as a selection as well, and we can do that the same way, except that if we just press and hold Command or Control and click it, it's only going to select one at a time. We can't select both together unless you hold down Shift, at which point if you look at our this little icon that comes up instead of our mouse, if you hold down Shift as well, a little plus comes up. So now we can click that and it's going to add that to our existing selection. So with this new selection that we've got, we can come across to our Layers panel, and I'm going to unlock this layer by clicking the padlock. And then I'm going to add a layer mask. So because we have a selection, we can just click the layer mask button and it's going to give us a mask based on that same selection. So we also need to add a white background. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and click here and then add a solid color layer. And we're just going to make this white and drag our color fill one down here. So that looks like it's been pretty accurately cut out. Now the one area where this is being let down is the reflection. So we can actually use our existing mask and we can just kind of refine this a little bit to get us a really cool, realistic looking reflection. So I'm going to go back to our paths channel, or our paths tab, sorry. And then I'm going to mouse over the reflection, hold down Command or Control if you're on the PC, and click it. So now we've got our reflection selected. And what we can now do is click into our layer mask and then make sure we have our gradient tool selected. And our gradient is going to be painting black and white because we have the mask selected. And then what I can do is just hold Shift to make sure I do this nice and straight and just click and drag up a little bit. And this is going to kind of feather out this mask. So because the selection is kind of constraining where we can paint, we're only going to be affecting this little bit here referencing the reflection. So let's just hit Command D to deselect, or Control D if you're on the PC. And that looks pretty good, but I think it's still a little bit strong. So what we can do is let's just reselect just our reflection. And then with the with the mask selected, we can use levels to kind of make this area of our mask kind of closer to black. And the closer something is to black, the more transparent it will be. So I'm going to hit Command or Control and L. And this is bring up the levels just for this bit we've got selected. And what we can do is we can reduce the output level of white. And if you look in our thumbnail on the right there, you can see that this is making this section darker. And it's also going to reduce the transparency effectively of the reflection. I'm going to hit OK and then hit Command D. And there we have a nice little reflection. If we hold Alt to take a look at our mask, you can kind of see more accurately what we've done. And there's a neat way to use paths to kind of refine and create something that is just much cleaner and much nicer. The other thing as well is that doing it with paths, these are now saved. So if you save your document, these will always be there. Even if you save it as a JPEG, I believe that path information does get kept as well. So I think that is going to do it this time, guys. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Toby, and we'll see you next time.